Chirpin' Crickets. This is Kim from Kim Takes On. I'm Kim. Hi. And this is my co-host and co-producer and bunch of other stuff. Codependent, I suppose. Terrence the Wonder Duck. Terrence says hi. He hopes everybody's having a great week out there. So, Crickets, you notice anything different? Got my hair done. I just was tired of looking like a washed out painting or something like that. I needed a little more color in my life. So what do you think? Looks good, huh? I love it. I found this new place that I got it done at, and everyone there was so super nice and fabulous and great. So my last show, I was talking about superhero, live action superhero stuff and the music that was used and themes and stuff like that. Today is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to be talking about some superhero cartoons, specific ones that are my personal favorites, the cartoon themes and things like that. And also a little talking about some of the voice work and stuff like that. Being someone of my age, which we won't talk about what it is. No, we won't talk about what it is, Terrence. Shut your beak. Wise butt duck. I grew up mostly in the 70s and 80s. Watching cartoons on TV a lot and stuff like that. It was really weird to be in that really kind of funny time frame. The 70s, you had a lot of shows that somebody finally noticed by the 70s. Apparently, a bunch of people noticed, hey, we're having kids watch shows about mice dropping anvils on cats' heads and, people getting shot in the face and rabbit season, duck season, blam, stuff like that. Maybe this isn't a good thing, and think of the children, blah. So in the 70s, you wound up with a lot of television shows that if they didn't have a moral that was very obvious, they would sometimes have something like at the end of an episode where, the characters would talk about, well, blah, 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 if they had done this or hadn't done that or blah, 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 whatever. Sometimes they would even have characters break the fourth wall and talk about, well, if you do this or if you do that, think about this, stay in school, don't litter, blah, 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 whatever. One of the shows that really got into that kind of shove the message down the little SOB's throat was the original version of the Super Friends, which was one of my favorite shows when I was a kid, from the 1970s. I loved the music from Super Friends because it just had that real it's just had that powerful superhero vibe, which we would get more into later. Personally, myself, I liked the later Super Friends stuff. The first iteration with Wendy, Marvin, and Wonder Dog, that could just, it had its moments, but I preferred the later stuff. And then when you got into Galactic Guardians, which was stuff with Darkseid and stuff like that, I thought it was much, much cooler, but that's just my own take. But the 80s were a little different. By the 80s, there were a lot of loosenings of that kind of, we have to shove the message down the kids' throats. It was still there. In certain shows, it was definitely still there. Filmation stuff was, I don't know if I want to say notorious. I don't mean to sound, I'm not saying that it's a terrible thing to give kids lessons and stuff like that. I thought that's what parents were for, but, I don't have kids, so what do I know? Because we all know if I had a child, that's when the Damien music would start playing in the background, because me having a kid would equal the end times are approaching swiftly. But anyway, the thing is, in the 80s, they kind of did relax that whole shove messages down the kids' throats kind of a thing. But at the same time, they went a little bananas the other way in the fact that you had television shows that were basically half-hour commercials, It was all like, oh, look at, we have this episode where this happens and that happens in character development and blah, blah, blah. But hey, look at this new thing that we've brought into the show. Wouldn't you like a toy that could do that, kids? Well, we're going to show a commercial at the end of the show so you can scream and whine and yell at your mom and pester them till they buy it for you. Capitalism. Hooray. Sorry. That was my one socio-political joke. And that's as close as I get to acting like a responsible adult. Ugh, horrible feeling that is. One of my favorite shows from this time period, and it's really weird because I know I was not the target demographic, but I'm fine with that, was definitely the Transformers. I loved Transformers. I have watched not every iteration, because some of them, I will be honest, some of them I liked better than others. And of course, it was all about selling the toys that, that were part of the show, that were the characters and stuff like that. And the whole idea that you had this truck that could transform into a giant robot and all this other stuff like that. And the whole Autobots waging war against the Decepticons and stuff like that. This stuff was actually interesting to people before Michael Bay came along and added a crap ton of explosions and Megan Fox in her body. Not that Megan Fox isn't a lovely lady. Terrence and I are in agreement on that. You can't say that. Filthy little duck you are. My goodness. Whew. Wow. Knew I shouldn't have let you watch Jennifer's Body. Sheesh. But I loved the music from this. And my big thing with Transformers was I loved the voices. I loved the voice cast so much, to the point where when I heard that they were doing a big screen version of the Transformers, I was like, please get Peter Cullen back. Please get Peter Cullen back. If Peter Cullen's not involved in this, I don't know what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm a total fangirl. Oh, well, screw it. I don't care. I've been a fangirl for this, that, and the other thing ever since I've been small. So, and I've also loved some of the other, like I said, some of the other iterations of the Transformers, including Beast Machines or Beast Wars. Because I have to talk about that for a minute, because I have to talk about one of my favoriteest people in the whole wide world when it comes to voice casting, and also is just a super cool, incredibly nice and awesome guy, Scott McNeil, who has done so many voices on so many shows, and also was a victim of the week on an episode of Supernatural. Hi, Scott. So that makes him even more super cool. Actually, he was on 2 episodes and died in both of them, now that I think about it. Sorry, Scott. But he was the voice of Rat Trap and Dinobot and Waspinator. Poor Waspinator. That character could not catch a frickin' break. And I was lucky enough to meet Scott at a convention that TC and I went to, and he was so lovely and so sweet and just super duper nice. So, apropos of nothing, and because it's my show, I just wanted to say how much Terrence and I both love Scott McNeil. And there's been other shows, like I mentioned, that have been important to me. One show that it was very, I watched the repeats of it, because when it first came along, I wasn't, I was like too small to, know about it or anything like that. And that was the 1960s version of Spider-Man, which was a Canadian and American production, which had one of the coolest themes ever. Y'all know it, right? Sing it with me. Come on, everybody. 1, 2, 3. Spider-Man, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, and all that stuff like that. Great song. Love it. I love the Ramones version of that song. I love it. I don't care. It's awesome. And something's really embedded in the, in the public consciousness when it winds up in something like The Simpsons with Homer's whole Spider Pig thing. And I loved the original Spider-Man. The one that they did for Fox, which was also really good and also had Joe Perry on guitar work. So come on, it's Joe Perry. That's freaking awesome. Also, I want to bring up Fox for their work on the X-Men cartoon, which was great, which also kind of leads into X-Men Evolution, which ran on Kids WB, which also was great and also had Scott McNeil's voice as the voice of Wolverine. I'm sorry, what? I'm sorry. Went off to my happy place. Sorry, I'm back now. I went away for a while, but I'm back. Yes, I am back, Terrence. Shut it. Somebody woke up on the sassy side of their nest this morning. But I really loved the 60s version of Spider-Man. I loved the backgrounds, the way the animation was done. I also really liked the fact I loved Paul Soles' voice as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And I've always been a fan of Spider-Man as the character. I've just always loved him. I've really liked everybody's iteration. Everybody has their own take on the Spider-Man character. Even Nicholas Hammond. No offense, no hate. But that's not my Spider-Man. I'm sorry. But I loved the Canadian American version of Spider-Man from the 60s, and I loved the theme. So that's one thing that I wanted to bring up. I also wanted to bring up, now I mentioned before that, I wasn't exactly the target demographic for Transformers because I'm a girl. Let's be honest. Most people think giant robots, stuff getting blown up, big robot fighting, laser stuff. People, unfortunately, tend to think that's only boys are interested in that. And I'm like, hello? I'm over here and, I have these. So, I'm definitely a female. And I like watching giant robots blow stuff up too. So, ta-da! I've always been, here's everybody else. Here's me. And it's just, and if that's you, anybody within the sound of my voice, if you like something that people are like, oh, well, girls don't usually like that, or boys don't usually like that, tell them to stick it in their ear. If you're a girl and you love hockey, go for it. If you're a guy and you like cooking shows, go for it. Like what you like, don't be a jerk. Ripping off a bit of timely advice from Brian Zane from Wrestling with Regret. I can't curse right now. It's Lent. I gave up cursing for Lent. Pray for me. But one show that I did want to bring up that was allegedly supposed to be like, oh, well, that's your I'm in the demographic for that because I'm a female, but I'm not in the age demographic. I loved Sailor Moon. There, I admit it. I said it. I admit it. I don't care. Keep scoring on me if you want. I don't care. And part of the reason I liked Sailor Moon was the fact that I loved the theme. I just loved fighting evil by moonlight, living love by daylight. I loved that song. I just loved it. I thought it was great. Yes, I know all my anime brothers and sisters out there. I realized that when they brought Sailor Moon to America, they edited the absolute diddles out of that show. Besides changing people's names, Usagi became Serena, blah, 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 and all this stuff like that. And we decided to change certain people's genders, and things like that, which are dumb because, I'm sorry. When it comes to bringing anime to America, I'm all for it. I've been loving anime since before I knew it was called anime, And I understand that certain jokes from Japan are not going to translate in America. Certain cultural aspects are not going to translate when you go to another country that may not have those, whatever, like Brock from Pokemon eating donuts when they're clearly supposed to be, rice balls, I think. But since people in America don't usually eat that, they call them donuts. Anyway. And the fact that there were certain relationships on the original, the Japanese version of Sailor Moon that I realized would probably get some Karens in this country up in arms. So people's, genders got changed and stuff like that. And, I'd like to think that now they wouldn't bother because people have supposedly grown the hell up. Don't quote me on that. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I loved that show. That show was a great show. And that was another show actually that had the whole Sailor Moon says things at the end of the show. It wasn't quite as ramming stuff down your throat as other shows were, but it was cute. I liked it. It made me laugh. And I can't talk about cartoons and music and stuff like that and voice work and not talk about one of the seminal shows from the 1990s when it comes to superhero cartoons. I can't not talk about Batman the Animated Series. Batman the Animated Series is one of the greatest series on television. And yes, I will fight you on that. It produced one of the best animated films that I saw at a theater, which was Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which TC and I went to see on Christmas Day when it came out, and is still an incredible movie. And some of the other amazing films out there that are part of the DCEU animated universe, or I don't know how which certain people and ducks might argue is actually the animated movies are a lot better than the live action movies. Why would you say that? Batman Under the Red Hood. Jensen Ackles' voice. Of course, Jensen has also voiced Batman in The Long Halloween. But you can't talk about Batman the Animated Series and not bring up the work of Danny Elfman, because they used some of his music, which had been in the original Batman 1989 big screen version, along with, I'm sorry, I have to look away for a second, the music of Shirley Walker for other parts of the show. And you can't talk about Batman the Animated Series and not talk about the voice cast. And I know everybody out there is going, oh, here we go. Here goes Kim about to wax philosophical for about an hour and a half about Mark Hamill. No, not going to do that. I'm going to wax philosophical about Mark Hamill, but it won't take me an hour and a half. I love Mark Hamill. He's awesome as the Joker. Fight me. I'm sorry. But he is. Mark Hamill's turn as the Joker on television, on multiple different animated works, and also live action. He was the voice of the Joker in the opening episode of Birds of Prey, which if you remember that show, good for you. Give yourself a cookie. And video games where he's voiced the Joker and all these other things, because his work as the Joker is amazing. And also it's Mark Hamill and he's awesome. And yes, I will fight you about that. But you can't talk about Batman the Animated Series and not talk about Kevin Conroy as the voice of Bruce Wayne and Batman. Because he made that show. I mean, the artwork is amazing. The writing is fantastic. And the tons of people who did guest star voice work and stuff like that is also incredible. But I can't picture that show without Kevin Conroy as the voice of Batman. And I can attest from personal experience that when I dream of Batman, and I do, and so do you, don't lie to yourself. When I dream of Batman, he sounds like Kevin Conroy. It's not an intentional thing. It's just there. It's just my take, quirk. I don't know what you want to call it. Not entirely sure we want to go with the word kink. Not sure. No kink shaming on this show, though. We try to be very open-armed and open-hearted here on Kim Takes On, me and Terrence. But I love his voice because his Batman was someone that you definitely believed could kick somebody's face in. But at the same time, it's a Batman that has not lost his humanity. Because a lot of people, side rant coming, but it's my show, so there. A lot of people always say like, oh, Batman's, he's so cold, he doesn't feel, he doesn't care, he's too driven, he's this, that, and the other thing, da-da-da-da-da. I don't think it's a question of he doesn't care or he doesn't have feelings. I feel like he feels too much. He feels for every person that is hurt by crime, by criminals and stuff like that. Inside, he's still that lonely little boy that lost his parents right in front of him, and he doesn't want any other child to feel that pain. There's a really good episode, I believe it's called Harley's Holiday, where Harley Quinn, voiced by the late, great, we miss you so much, Arlene Sorkin, it's decided that she's well enough that she can leave Arkham. No, not for nothing, but Arkham Asylum should just have a revolving door on it because, okay, fine, all right. That was my one, the one side note, I guess. So anyway, so they're like, okay, fine, you're sane, head out. So she tries to, have a decent day in a normal life and just do things like a regular person, go shopping, do things like that. And stuff goes, all right, exceedingly sideways. Let's go with that. Exceedingly sideways. End of the story. She winds up back in Arkham. And Batman brings her back. And she basically asks him, why are you being so nice to me? Usually I try and, blow you up and bash your head in and do all this stuff. He hands her a dress that she had bought and paid for. And he says to her that the end of the lines that he says, the last line just got me right in the feels. I had a bad day once too. And it's said with such humanity. And it's just incredibly beautiful. And I have to bring up another episode. Now this was done by more like the animators, which, because Kevin doesn't actually say a word, but it's so beautiful. It's an episode called Baby Doll, which is one of my favorite episodes of Batman, the animated series. And it's about an actress named Mary Dahl who became a TV star. She was a TV star on a sitcom called Love That Baby. She played a little girl. Now, the issue is she has a medical condition where she doesn't age. She's now a full-grown woman mentally, but physically she still looks like a little girl. And it turned out her parents mismanaged her money, and eventually they brought in another kid on the show, kind of a Cousin Oliver situation. If you get it, you get it. And she winds up losing her mind. And she gets in this big gun battle with Batman. She's got a little doll that one of the eyes she can shoot out the eye, which is just disturbing as heck. He chases her into a hall of mirrors, and one of the mirrors, because there are those mirrors that make you look all distorted and weird. So when she looks in one of the mirrors, she realizes that the mirror is it's showing her reflection, but it's her as an adult. And it just breaks her. She starts shooting at the image because she knows she can never have that. And she's shooting at it until she runs out of bullets, and it's just click, 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 click. And there's just tears pouring down her face, and Batman walks up behind her, and she looks up at him, and her catchphrase on the show was, "I didn't mean to," like a little, like a kind of their version of "Did I do that?" from Family Matters. And she looks up at him, and her voice is choking with pain. And she's like, "I didn't mean to." And she holds on to him like around the legs, and she's just crying. And his hand comes down and very gently touches the top of her head, because he knows what it's like to be a lost child. And I won't even attempt to say that episode doesn't make me well up. I'm getting choked up just thinking about it. Gosh darn. Because it's so beautifully done. That show had so many moments and so many episodes that were full of comedy, action, beauty, pathos, body horror, any number of things. And I know I'm rabbiting on and on and on. I'm very sorry about that, but it's one of my favorite shows. And Kevin Conroy was one of the good guys. He was one of the people that was helping out during 9/11, helping out, serving the rescue workers and the fire department, fire people and stuff like that. They were doing a job that I am not brave enough to do. And at one point, he stood up on one of the tables and did the whole "I am vengeance, I am the night, I am Batman" line. And everybody lost their frickin' minds. And to be absolutely honest, I don't blame him. And I miss him. I miss Kevin a lot, because he was one of the good guys. He not only voiced one of the good guys, he was one of the best guys. So, that's my little show for this week, my little old podcasty show here on the interwebs, which I don't quite get how it works, but computers. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, please leave a comment. If you would like to subscribe to our channel, please click on all of the buttons that allow you to do that. And if you have any comments, queries, questions, money, chocolate, platinumroselle@yahoo.com. We'd love it if you could subscribe to our channels, because we have a whole lot of great things going on. My Puddin' TC is the one that puts all this stuff up, and he has a ton of other great shows out there. Daily Obscuria is a show that he does every day with a new song, talking about, a song from the past that you may not have heard of, and with all kinds of interesting trivia about that. He has a show which is a disco party show, which shows you how much I love him, because I'm pushing this, because I know all my friends who are metalheads are going to want to crack my head in. And also he's got AM 70s and all kinds of other crazy, wonderful things coming up. And we hope you'll take a listen and find out about all our great stuff and how much we love music and how much we love to have you listen to music with us and other things too. So for another week here on Kim Takes On, I'm Kim, and this is Terrence the Wonder Duck. And we both wish you a happy and safe week, and keep on rocking.